Hey, welcome to this radio channel, and I want to talk a little bit about propagation conditions. I've been noticing also a few comments about a lot of things that I see on the different groups. And first of all, um, winter propagation in the evening was crappy this year, and that is due to the low solar flux in part. Long nights, always a problem for shortwave propagation. But as we're getting into February, and probably a lot of you have noticed that there are many of the stations that are now much stronger in the evening. We do receive Europeans like Radio Romania much better. There's improved propagation, especially the north, where you are, the closer to the pole you are, basically, the worse the propagation is in winter. And here we see it in Montreal. The signals that a lot of guys in the south, like in the United States, in Virginia and places like that, that are much more south than Montreal here, have had good propagation on some signals where Montreal didn't get really a lot of it, and that's because of longer nights and basically being closer to the pole. The conditions are also worse, especially if the geomagnetic fields unsettle a little bit. But one thing I want to talk about also is a lot of you have been using like propagation charts, that says, okay, band conditions, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And you know what? I never use that. And I think a lot of you rely way too much on that. I've seen people saying, "Oh, conditions are bad tonight, so I'm not gonna, I'm gonna watch a movie instead of tuning the radio." And if you do that, well, you know what? You're missing on a lot of things, and you don't really understand fully what propagation is, because you cannot say, "Okay, conditions on this band are good or not," because that depends on where you are in the world. That depends on a lot of factors, and I can tell you that even if it says that it's no good on a certain frequency range, I can tell you lots of guys are having contacts as ham radio operators on that frequency range. It's completely useless to use that type of chart. And the best propagation condition monitor that you have is called your radio. And you just turn it on and you just tune the bands and you look for yourself what you can hear or not. I think using a tool like that is useless. Where it's useful to know information is on a page like this one, where you have the basic information that tells you the propagation. I see some guys saying, "Oh, I look at the charts and I already know that propagation is going to be bad." No, you can't, in the most part. Yes, of course, if the conditions like the K index is really high, you'll know that propagation is very different. Bad, it depends what you want to hear, because there are tendencies when the geomagnetic field, for example, is active or in storm, where certain signals can actually be increased instead of being deteriorated. And basically you can hear maybe stations from the south. Here in Montreal, when we have geomagnetic fields storming, often I hear South Americans much better. There's like an increased effect. So, stop looking at the numbers, start tuning the radio. I think that's how you should do it, not the other way around, looking at the numbers and saying, "Okay, it's crap tonight." Also, what's interesting for those that are newbies, because propagation is complex, to understand. And it takes, years sometimes to just understand why this or that is happening and why, okay, this number means that, It's very simple. This chart tells you a big story, and it has just three numbers. And this is the solar flux. The solar flux index is the best number, the most important one at first. The higher this number, usually the better the propagation, especially on higher frequencies. Then you got A and K, which is related to our geomagnetic field. And it tells you a story about, is the geomagnetic field quiet, unsettled? Unsettled means simply that your geomagnetic field is, kind of undecided between or stuck in between, possibilities of minor storm, but it's not super quiet. And then you've got the storming. But these numbers are interesting because the A and K indices have color codes. So when they're green, not too bad. When they're yellow, yeah, it's getting a little complicated. When they're red, definitely major storm or minor storm at least, and there's something happening. But it doesn't mean not to tune the bands. And that's what I want to say here. Because a lot of you just say, okay, index 7, not turning on the radio today. Well, if you do that, I think you're missing a lot, and you don't fully understand the shortwave propagation effects. I do listen when the K-index at 7 or 8, and you'll be surprised at how you can DX stuff. Unusual stuff that you don't DX or never hear when there's such conditions. Also, you'll note that February, March, and April, great propagation. You know, when we're close to the equinox, you know, end of February, month of March, month of April, same for end of August, September, early October, or mid-October, there is increased propagation. It's one of the best times of the year where we're getting, you know, first of all, the longer days here in the north, and in the south, well, days are shorter, but because of the grain line conditions, which are very different, and the overall, you know, as we get into March, we get an overall place where day and night is pretty much equal everywhere on Earth. So basically, it helps, and it does show on the propagation of signals. And of course, you'll hear signals that you don't hear. And an example that I have here is that in December, or even in January, Radio Australia in the evening, 17840 was impossible here. Radio New Zealand, 15720 also. All India Radio, barely making it on 9445 for me here in Montreal at 2200, 2130, and 2200. But you know what? If you look now, yesterday evening, I tuned the bands. And Radio Australia, not super strong, but it was there on 17840. I can bet you that if I try New Zealand tonight, it's not going to be strong, but it's going to start showing its signal. I'm going to start getting some propagation slightly. India, All India Radio, been good even on 11670, so 9445, 11670. Pretty cool signals. So it's been really, really nice to have increased propagation, and that has to do more about, you know, the changing of the propagation conditions with the seasons, longer days in the north, and so on. So you'll also notice that evening signals are much better. So take a look at propagation. Turn on your radio. Stop looking at the numbers all the time. I see those people that always look at the numbers. That's only what they do. And you're like, okay, well, you're missing out on something. If you're looking at numbers, I don't think you understand really the propagation conditions and what you can hear or not. So tune your radio. Best thing to do, turn the dials. And you know what? Don't forget, because I see that a lot of you are stuck on international broadcasters. There's a lot more than that. If you want to have fun with shortwave and not, you know, be bored after 2 or 3 years, listen to other types of signals. There's international broadcasters, amateur radio operators, and there's a lot of utility signals. There's a lot of stuff on shortwave that can be heard. Stop complaining you don't hear Radio Romania. Look, listen to amateur bands. There's lots of interesting conversations. Yeah, there's boring stuff about, you know, everyday life, but there's interesting conversations also. There's DX to be done on the amateur bands. You know, you can use a website like qrz.com, and you know where the stations come from. And of course, utility signals. There's lots of stuff that you can listen. You can decode to weatherfax charts. You can listen to all sorts of unusual signals. So turn on the radio, tune, and stop looking at the numbers all the time. It's the best way that you'll be enjoying your hobby. If you enjoy my videos, why not subscribe to my channel? You'll be informed when new videos are online. Give us a thumbs up if you like the videos. And hope you enjoy my videos. And also follow me on the live shows that we have almost every week. Thanks for watching.